For many fans around the world, Xiao Zhan and Wang Yiba's partnership is the kind of lightning-in-a-bottle chemistry that doesn't come around often. Their collaboration on screen might have created one of the most beloved duos of modern television, but what truly captured hearts were the moments that happened off-camera, those fleeting glances, unexpected jokes, unplanned acts of kindness, and the deep, unspoken understanding that forms only when two artists learn to trust each other. While audiences see the finished product, perfect lighting, flawless choreography, elegantly delivered lines, what they don't see are the moments that were never scripted, the laughter that halted filming, the exhausted yet sincere pep talks late at night, the shared umbrella under sudden rain, the chaotic bloopers that had directors covering their faces, and the quiet gestures that revealed who these two were beneath fame and costume. Today, let's step into a dramatized, behind-the-scenes universe, packed with humor, warmth, and emotional depth, where Xiao Zhan and Wang Yiba's off-camera moments glow just as brightly as their on-screen performances. A surprising start, when a stumble became a bond. Every iconic partnership has an origin story, and this one didn't begin with fireworks. It began with an unexpected slip. During their early days of filming, the set floor had been polished to a mirror-like shine for a dramatic action sequence. Xiao Zhan, wearing costume boots that were definitely not designed with traction in mind, walked onto the set with a mix of nerves and determination. One moment he was upright, the next, he was unceremoniously sliding forward like he'd stepped onto ice. But before he could hit the ground, a hand shot out from the side, swift, precise, almost reflexive. Wang Yiba caught him without missing a beat. There was a moment of shocked silence. Then Wang Yiba blinked, expression perfectly blank, and said, "You okay?" Xiao Zhan burst out laughing. And that laughter never really stopped throughout filming. It was the first unstaged moment where their natural chemistry revealed itself, not taught, not rehearsed, but simply there. The legendary scene that wouldn't end. Some scenes go smoothly. Others unravel quickly into absolute chaos. One emotionally charged confrontation scene between their characters was meant to be intense and dramatic. The lighting was low, the wind machines were at full blast, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. Everything was perfect until the wind machine blew too hard and sent Xiao Zhan's hair directly into his mouth. He tried to keep acting. He really tried. But every time he opened his mouth, a strand of hair whipped across his face. On the third attempt, Wang Yiba couldn't hold it in anymore and snorted loudly. That was it. The entire scene collapsed. The director sighed dramatically. The sound crew dropped their equipment from laughing too hard. Xiao Zhan bent over in hysterics. And Wang Yiba, who almost never cracked during filming, had to cover his face with his sleeve. This serious scene took over 20 takes, but each take pulled them closer together, building an unspoken rhythm that later translated flawlessly on screen. The hidden talent show. Night shoots are notorious. Cold air, sleepy actors, endless retakes. One particularly late evening, morale on set was dropping. Everyone was exhausted, including Xiao Zhan and Wang Yiba. To lighten the mood, someone jokingly suggested that the actors perform a talent show. Wang Yiba shrugged and said, "I can dance," like everyone didn't already know that. And then, without music, he performed a smooth freestyle dance right there on the dimly lit set, his movements fluid even in full costume. Cameras stopped rolling. Crew members gathered around, clapping and cheering. Not to be outdone, Xiao Zhan stepped forward dramatically. "My talent," he announced, "is impressions." What followed was a series of unexpectedly accurate recreations of various crew members' habits. The assistant director's sighs. The sound guy's constant mumbling. The lighting tech's dramatic hand gestures. The room erupted. For a few minutes, the exhaustion faded. The cold didn't matter. Everyone forgot the time. And the set, usually full of tension, was warm with laughter. Those were the nights that turned colleagues into trusted companions. When rain fell and an umbrella changed everything. Not all moments were funny. Some were quiet, small, and profoundly human. During a break between takes one afternoon, a sudden downpour drenched the entire location. People scrambled for cover. Equipment was rushed under tents. Chaos swirled everywhere. Xiao Zhan stepped out of the makeup tent and froze. He'd left his jacket somewhere on set and was now under a downpour. Before he could react, an umbrella appeared silently over his head. Wang Yibo held it, arm casually extended, expression unreadable. "You'll get sick," he said simply. Xiao Zhan blinked. "What about you?" Wang Yibo shrugged. "I heal faster." It was such a simple exchange, but the sincerity hung heavy in the air. Beneath their teasing, laughter, and occasional arguments, there was something deeper, a protective instinct, a quiet loyalty. The rain couldn't wash that away. The misty-eyed moment nobody expected. Filming emotional scenes takes a toll. One night, after a particularly draining shoot, Xiao Zhan walked off set looking quieter than usual. He sat down on a prop bench, staring at the ground. Wang Yibo approached, not saying anything at first, just sitting down beside him. "You good?" he finally asked. Xiao Zhan nodded, but didn't speak. They sat in silence for a long moment, the cool night air settling around them. And then Wang Yibo added, almost reluctantly, "You did great today." Xiao Zhan looked up, startled. Wang Yibo wasn't the type to give easy praise. But that night, maybe he felt it needed to be said. Something softened between them in that moment, a deeper understanding forming in the quiet space between words. Sometimes friendship isn't built on shared laughter. Sometimes it's built on shared silence. The scene that turned into a real-life rescue. There was one action sequence that required Xiao Zhan to perform a complicated stunt. Nothing dangerous, but tricky enough that it needed precise timing. He practiced, rehearsed, and perfected the movements. When the cameras rolled, everything went as planned, until a piece of set decoration unexpectedly shifted, throwing off his footing. His character was supposed to be caught dramatically mid-fall. But this time, the fall wasn't staged. Wang Yibo, just barely off camera, reacted instantly. Without waiting for the stunt coordinator, he darted forward and grabbed Xiao Zhan by the arm, steadying him before he could hit the ground. The entire crew froze. "You okay?" Wang Yibo asked, breath short. Xiao Zhan, still processing, nodded. "Yeah, thanks." Wang Yibo rolled his eyes, trying to downplay the intensity of what happened. "Don't fall without warning next time." But everyone knew what it meant. Beneath his cool exterior, Wang Yibo was always paying attention. And for Xiao Zhan, knowing someone had his back, on and off set, meant everything. The day they made the whole crew cry. One of the most unforgettable moments wasn't funny, chaotic, or surprising. It was quietly emotional. At the end of filming, during the wrap ceremony, each actor took turns sharing their gratitude. When it was Xiao Zhan's turn, he spoke sincerely about the challenges he overcame, the growth he experienced, and the friend urged behind the. If the story of Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's partnership were written as a drama, their very first behind-the-scenes moment would be the perfect opening scene, unexpected, comedic, and strangely symbolic of the connection that was about to unfold. Long before the world saw their chemistry, before the cameras captured even a single iconic shot, there was that polished studio floor, gleaming, slippery, and absolutely unforgiving. Xiao Zhan had arrived early that morning, bright-eyed, newly caffeinated, and fully determined to make a flawless first impression. He walked onto the set with that charming mix of confidence and nerves he always carried during the first days of shooting. The production team was bustling around, adjusting lights, positioning props, checking scripts. Wang Yibo was quietly going over his lines on the other side of the room, headphones around his neck, calm as ever. Everything was peaceful. Everything was professional. Everything was perfectly normal, until Xiao Zhan's right boot betrayed him. One moment, he was striding forward. The next, he was gliding across the floor like a runaway ice skater. Papers flew. Crew members gasped. A prop sword clattered dramatically to the ground. And then, just before gravity won, Wang Yibo looked up, instantly assessing the situation with the precision of someone who'd mastered every balance sport known to man. In one smooth motion, He stepped forward and caught Xiao Zhan by the arm. It was swift. It was clean. It was the kind of move usually done by stunt doubles, not co-stars. For a second, nobody breathed. Then Xiao Zhan blinked up at him, wide-eyed, hair slightly disheveled, dignity definitely gone. Hi, he said weakly. Wang Yiba gave a tiny nod, completely straight-faced. You okay? And that was it. The tension broke. The crew exhaled. Someone snorted. Xiao Zhan burst into laughter. The bright, infectious kind that echoed off the rafters and made everyone else start laughing too. Even Wang Yiba's lips twitched upward, barely noticeable but definitely there. It was chaos, yes. But it was the kind of chaos that sparks connection. The fall heard around the set. Contrary to popular belief, that slip wasn't the end of it. For the rest of the day, Xiao Zhan tried to walk normally, pretending the incident never happened, but the universe had other plans. Every time he passed a shiny patch of floor, someone from the crew would call out, "Careful, danger zone." Wang Yiba didn't say much about it, but the teasing glint in his eyes said everything. And whenever a scene required dramatic movement, he would casually position himself just a little closer, subtle, protective, and pretending it was coincidence. Xiao Zhan noticed. Everyone noticed. And somehow the clumsy beginning became the unofficial icebreaker for the entire cast. A second slip, this time on purpose. Later that week, they filmed an outdoor scene requiring Xiao Zhan to step down from a raised platform. The director asked for a smooth, elegant descent, heroic, confident, controlled. Naturally, Xiao Zhan remembered his indoor humiliation and mentally rehearsed every step. He walked to the edge. He inhaled dramatically. He began to descend. And that's when Wang Yiba, standing just behind the camera, couldn't resist. Right before Xiao Zhan stepped down, Wang Yiba whispered just loud enough for him to hear, "Don't fall." Xiao Zhan missed the step. He stumbled. He flailed. He somehow managed to stay upright, and then glared at Wang Yiba, who immediately looked away, pretending to examine the scenery, though the amusement on his face was impossible to hide. The director threw his hands up. The crew howled. Xiao Zhan pointed at Wang Yiba, dramatically, like the villain in a comedy. "You did that." Wang Yiba only shrugged. "I was helping." "Helping? Sure." But strangely enough, that tiny prank made the mood lighter, the tension softer, and the room warmer. The training mishap that became a mini competition. Not long after, the two were sent for a quick movement rehearsal session. Combat sequences, posture, synchronization, standard preparation. While the instructor demonstrated the routine, everything looked smooth and simple. But the moment Xiao Zhan attempted the first pivot, his foot slipped just slightly on the mat. Not enough to fall, just enough to be noticeable. Wang Yiba, ever alert, saw it immediately. "You're still thinking about that first fall, aren't you?" he asked quietly. "No," Xiao Zhan insisted. "I'm just warming up." "Sure," Wang Yiba replied, making it sound like the least believable statement in human history. Then something unexpected happened. Wang Yiba, who rarely stumbled, intentionally did the next pivot wrong. Not badly, just subtly off balance, mimicking the earlier slip with near-perfect precision. The instructor blinked. "Wang Yiba, warming up," Wang Yiba answered, tone perfectly flat. Xiao Zhan burst into laughter so loud the instructor flinched. For the rest of the session, Wang Yiba slipped dramatically every time Xiao Zhan lost his footing, even falling into a harmless roll at one point, popping back up with a poker face, so convincing the entire room cracked up. By the end, the instructor was shaking his head. "You two," he sighed, "are going to be trouble." And he was right. But they were the good kind of trouble. The moment the crew realized this was something special. Later that afternoon, the filming assistant walked past the two actors sitting together on the steps of a prop building. Xiao Zhan was laughing again, bright, relaxed, carefree. Wang Yiba was sipping water, trying to pretend he wasn't amused but absolutely failing. Their shoulders leaned closer than they realized. Their conversation was easy, unguarded, natural. It had been only a few days since the legendary fall, but something had already clicked. The assistant whispered to a nearby cameraman, "They're going to be iconic together." And the cameraman nodded. You could feel it, the beginning of a chemistry that didn't need to be performed. It was effortless, born not from scripts or direction, but from genuine moments, laughter, teasing, and kindness that slipped through the cracks of professionalism and built something real beneath the surface.